Hey, so this is Jeffery James Bucchino talking about Round. So this introduction here, of course, is the simple little, logo that we had for Cell Block Z with the sound effect, of course. One of these days we really got to update that. This quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson is actually from a Q&A session he did on some show. I couldn't tell you the exact one, but flat earthers always love to take it out of context, trying to say that Neil deGrasse Tyson even says that the earth is flat, when that's absolutely not what he's saying. He's describing something completely different, and it's hilarious to think that they would try and say that he believes the earth is flat when he absolutely doesn't. And all this footage here is just of different globes that I could find, all of which were, of course, decorative globes, not for educational purposes, because flat earthers love to point that out, that these are not for educational purposes, and that's because you don't get educational tools at your local home and garden stores. I loved the crystal one that you see for the title screen there. Casey Wagner, of course, was my assistant director. Fantastic job from him, showing me different angles, suggesting different things to do with certain shots. This neighborhood is actually my parents' neighborhood. The house is where my parents lived. They were nice enough to let me use the home to film in, because it actually looked a lot like a home I used to live in Texas, and the neighborhood even looked like that, but we had to make sure we kept nice tight shots, otherwise you'd see the surrounding area didn't look anything like anything in Texas. Texas is a lot flatter than this area here. And going in, you see this nice little husband and wife dynamic here. Gary and Joni were absolutely fantastic. Gary was actually a last-minute casting replacement. Our original actor had a sudden commitment come up and had to cancel on us, and unfortunately this was the only weekend we were able to film the movie, so we had no choice but to either recast right away or delay filming into 2020, which I really didn't want to do, and I'm extremely glad now that I didn't, given the current current events. We almost lost Cale here, the young man playing Caleb, who did a great job, by the way. I was really upset when he found out he wasn't available for filming. And luckily, he got one weekend open, and we were able to film that weekend. That's why we had to film that time, right then and there. Otherwise, we would have had to wait until 2020. Like I said, definitely didn't want to do that. And of course, this is the dinner table where most of the action in this movie takes place. We did all this filming in one day in this dining area here. Tried to make sure that those oranges were in the shot all the time, and we tried desperately to maintain continuity with the drinks, but needless to say that was impossible. So you'll notice the water levels in the glass keep going up and down, but we weren't really that concerned with continuity. We knew there were going to be a lot of continuity errors in this, given the fact that we had literally one day to film all of it. Now, the points that Caleb is making here are all points that I have heard from actual flat earthers. And all those flat earthers basically became an amalgam of, into one character to create Flat Hat Matt, of course, played by myself. And this is actually, technically, this is actually one of the first things I actually filmed for this movie, because I filmed all this based on a ridiculous flat Earth video. I saw somebody basically pouring water onto a lemon and saying that this proves that the Earth can't be flat. And I basically, this scene was what I used for the auditions. So all the actors that auditioned for this is basically the scene that they were reading. So I definitely wanted to show them exactly who Flat Hat Matt was and what kind of what the video looked like that they were going to be seeing when Caleb is showing them the YouTube video. So I actually filmed that, and that's the same footage that ends up in the movie. the facial expressions on Gary are absolutely hilarious, and I love the reactions that Joni gives throughout this movie. Her face and her voice, everything about this character, she really did a great job showing, this, portraying this character. She understood. She was sort of the mediator between these two, because they're of course always butting heads. It's a father and son after all, and they're a perfect balance to one another, but constantly butting heads because they're exactly alike. The mom knows this, or excuse me, the stepmom knows that, so she knows that she has to sort of, stand between them to, act as a sort of referee. And Joni really seemed to understand that. She really got this character. That face right there, especially. And oh my god, this is one of my favorite flat Earth ridiculousness statements. The idea that gravity isn't real. And I gotta say though, as much as I as proud as I am of this movie, I absolutely despised playing this character. He was just so ridiculous and smug, and every time I had to put on that hat and glasses, I just cringed. Mostly I spent time looking around, making sure nobody saw me and heard me, and thought that I might actually believe any of that crap. And again, this is an actual debate that flat earthers tend to throw out, is that gravity's not real, that density explains why objects fall, which is ridiculous because as Gary, or Adam in the character's case, explains, it doesn't work that way because the air above an object is even less dense than the air below it, so why wouldn't objects fall upward? There's no explanation for that except for gravity. It makes perfect sense. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it doesn't work. I love the little improvisation by Caleb to throw the ball up throw the orange up as he's holding it, and Gary just ran with it as he saw that. You could see on his face, he's like, "Oh, that gives him an idea, right?" He did a fantastic job doing all this. We literally had to cast him in with less than a week to film, and so he had about 5 days to do his best to get these lines down and get them memorized as best he possibly could. And he still had trouble during the filming. And just in case anybody's wondering, no, that's not real wine. I've been on sets where they used real alcohol, and it was not a good idea. So that's apple juice that she's drinking. This line right here of my teacher says there are no stupid questions. Is one of the first lines of dialogue I wrote where I was coming up with the idea for this. I had watched so many flat Earth videos that I thought to myself, there's got to be a story here. There's got to be some kind of a comedy I could write to make use of my time, spent watching all these idiots. So yeah, and then something in here came to my mind. The idea that statement, there are no stupid questions. Well, some of these questions that flat earthers are constantly asking would put some of these school teachers that say that to shame. And this is actually filmed in my backyard. Again, an actual argument I've heard from several ridiculous flat earthers trying to say that the fact that clouds stay up in the air is proof that gravity doesn't exist, which, once again, if you understand how buoyancy works, it makes sense. And we had a fun time with this, him trying to say water vapor. Yeah, I gave him a little bit of direction there. It's like this is how he's saying it. He's like, but putting the emphasis on that, the fact that it's water vapor. You'll notice throughout the movie, the dad, Adam, gets more and more frustrated with these ridiculous arguments until, of course, it gets to an outright boiling point by the end. And in a way, that's all real. All that frustration you see him, letting out is real frustration, but it's not because of course, the flat Earth arguments. It's because of the fact that he's having so much trouble with these lines because they were very, very, very science oriented lines with a lot of information in them. So he had to remember a lot of different facts, and even then he didn't get all of them right. People have come to me and pointed out little minor details that he got inaccurate, but chalk that up to the fact that he's just that frustrated that he's missing the numbers, or he's not quite saying things the way they're supposed to be said. But he understands. Again, here we have Joni playing the moderator, reeling him back in a bit. This was one of the more awkward transitions, but it made sense. The way she just sort of says, you know what, I think we need to reel it in a little bit here. And yeah, a little glimmer of hope for Flat Hat Matt just completely dashed because he it has that line, but he says that's impossible. One of the favorite arguments flat earthers tend to throw out is the idea that we're spinning 1,000 miles an hour and that's absolutely impossible. We'd get thrown off of it and everything. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Again, doesn't work that way. And they use this stupid demonstration of a soaking wet tennis ball. I actually had a really hard time filming that to the point where you can see the water because, just getting the light just right, getting the focus of the camera just right, everything about it. And I filmed that on a different camera, actually. All the stuff of me as Flat Hat Matt was filmed on either a regular camcorder, like a handheld camcorder, or on my cell phone, so that the quality of video would actually be noticeably different, given that his what you're watching with him are YouTube videos versus watching these people in real life. And trying to get to the point. I think I spent maybe 3 or 4 hours just soaking this tennis ball and spinning it in the air, trying to get it right, and tried a bunch of different ways of doing it. Of course, one of the biggest problems was keeping the tennis ball in frame while doing it. But finally, thankfully, got it, and I was, really happy with that. And of course, doing the editing of, getting slow motion, putting the little rewind sound effect on it. But yeah, here we get the real explanation of how the Earth spins is that, the Earth only spins one time a day. You're spinning this ball so damn fast, of course the water's going to fly off of it. You're spinning it thousands and thousands of times faster than the Earth spins. The fact that the Earth's spinning 1,000 miles an hour is just the fact that it's so freaking huge. Oh my gosh, I get so frustrated with these people. I really did despise playing that character. And Joni playing this, just such a sweet character, but at the same time, that look that Cale gives her when she says that line, "You weren't the most graceful of toddlers." The look that he gives her is hilarious. Every time we saw that when we were editing this movie, we just couldn't help but laugh. But yeah, actually, strangely enough, shortly after this movie, somebody pointed out another good analogy of how slow the Earth really spins, and that is it spins once every 24 hours, which means it basically spins at half the speed of the hour hand on a clock, because the hour hand on a clock goes around twice a day. Earth only goes around once a day, so if you look at how fast the hour hand on a clock is going, that's twice as fast as the Earth is spinning. So some of the footage you see of Joni is cleverly disguising transition shots between the shots of Gary and Cale, because for one reason or another, one shot would work, and another shot wouldn't, or the end of one shot wouldn't work, so we'd have to split between two shots or two scenes or two different takes. So they were cleverly disguised with the little cutaways to Joni. And if you didn't notice, there was actually a little bit of an error there that we didn't even think about till after we got done editing, and that is the scene where he goes to get that felt pen out of the drawer. If you notice, he pats his breast pocket, and the felt pen is actually in the breast pocket when he does that. So a little bit of a goof there. I mean, I guess he's just so you could chalk it up to he's so frustrated he doesn't notice that the pen is in his pocket, so he still goes to the junk drawer to get it. Like I said, we weren't concerned with continuity. We went by the trauma rules of continuity in this movie, which is to say there are none. And here we're getting to one of the lines that is just, he had such a hard time getting because of all the numbers that he had to use. So we had to kind of tape the numbers on a piece of paper off to the side so he would, know what numbers to say and, how to say them. And the I don't understand women feelings mutual line. It's hilarious. And that little improvised reaction from Joni with the little blowing a kiss across at him, it was just brilliant. I had to somehow include that in there. And this is a great little line right here, and it's actually kind of an homage to the guy that I watched, Simon Dan, all over YouTube. All the videos that I watched of Flat Earthers, I didn't watch the actual Flat Earthers. I watched Simon Dan on YouTube, and I'll give you a link to that guy in the description below. And yeah, his channel is really interesting. Every Friday he does a Flat Earther video. But one of the things he would always say is whenever anybody would say that, oh, we used to think the Earth was flat, we thought the Earth was flat for thousands of years. Yeah, that's true, but we got smarter. Yeah, and he points that out anytime somebody uses that ridiculousness. I mean, you're going to believe, that something we thought thousands of years ago is true versus what we know today. I mean, by that standard, then that means that we're not meant to fly, because if we were meant to fly, God would have been giving us wings, right? The face that Cale is making here, this almost fear. I had to kind of give him a little bit of direction there, because he was listening to the description that Gary was giving him, and he really wasn't getting it. He really didn't understand what he was talking about. So I had to explain to him. I asked him, do you know what he's talking about here? Do you understand what he's telling you? And he came out and honestly told me, no, I don't. So I explained to him. I said, okay, well, imagine this. When he's describing this, I want you to imagine that you're on a roller coaster, and this roller coaster is going, 100 miles an hour, and it's really fast, and, doing the flips and the loops and everything like that. And I want you to imagine that you're doing that all without any kind of seatbelt or anything like that. So that's the face I want you to give me. And this is one of my favorite things to point out to flat earthers, is this idea. It's like we've got all these different governments, we got all these different space agencies, and every one of them, is perpetuating the same story. So why would they all be working together for this? And yeah, they all believe this whole ridiculousness of it's some secret government agency like the Illuminati or something. And that line, of course, about wanting to punch Flat Hat Matt in the face is really my own feelings towards him. And again, Joni kind of improvised, if you don't punch him, I will. One of our production assistants, Christopher Valderrama, that's actually my cousin, who was just in town one day, one weekend, and I needed an insert shot for the water hitting the ground, and I got him to help me out. He was the one that actually poured the water for that close-up on the water hitting the tiles. So thanks, Christopher. You're awesome, man. And as you saw in there, NASA had nothing to do with this. I did actually contact them, but they suggested that I don't use their logo because I actually wanted the dad to be wearing a NASA shirt, but they wouldn't give me permission, so I went with a NASA blue shirt instead. And the final little homage to one of my most hated flat earthers. Hope he watches this, and I hope he really enjoys this little homage to his famous little video of him doing this. This is a nice little bookstore in a town, about 30 minutes from where I live. They were nice enough to let me film in their little science section right there. Just real quick, I was only there for about an hour, again, hoping to God that no other customers would walk by and see me acting like an idiot and think that I was serious. And no, I did not rip that book up. The book that you saw there was a different book that I had glued pages that I photoshopped together to make look like a children's book about space. And no, I didn't rip it all. All the different shots I did, I acted like I was going to rip it, and then it cuts away, and you just hear the sound effect of paper ripping, which I recorded completely separate, all just ripping up blank pages to get the sounds. Of course, it's a globe deal with it is straight out of me. I mean, that's my line that I've been telling flat earthers all the time, because it just seems like they just can't accept the fact that the Earth is a globe. So they just need to, accept it, deal with it, and move on, because it's not changing. Anyways, that was my movie round. I hope you guys liked it. As much as we enjoyed making it, we had a great time. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.